challenges are what strengthen us. I think they teach us so much more, and it is a good idea to have a conversation around challenges and really put it out there so that more people can get inspired.
We cannot ignore the geopolitics. We cannot ignore the social and the geographical barriers that come in.
Number one, you need to know whether you have a product market fit. The second thing I would say is government regulation. And the third thing I would say is you need to be able to financially think around this.
Not able to see what's happening with my mother when she was diagnosed in 2017 or 18 with dementia. And I realized, she lives on her own independently. And I was very anxious because I'd lost my father and father-in-law in a very short span of 4 months. And they were only in late 60s. And one of them had a heart attack. And it was like, why did we not know?
Every woman has this innate skill of being a leader. She's always leading. She's problem solving. She's innovating to keep her life going. Be it a homemaker, be it a career person, be it an entrepreneur.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Lead Her Roundtable. I'm Devapriya Khanna, the founder of Connexus Global, and joining me today are our guests Aditi Banerjee, Deepti Atrish, and Kavita Prasad. In today's episode, we are diving into the topic of women leaders scaling businesses across borders. Conversations at the Lead Her Roundtable are immensely important for us as our organization Connexus is dedicated to fostering the growth of women-led businesses and careers globally, and initially, as you know, in the dynamic UK-India business corridor. Operating at the intersection of gender diversity and economic empowerment, Connexus unlocks access to knowledge, networks, and visibility for women-led businesses. And Aditi and Kavita, you all are integral members of our mentor board, so you know what this entails. And we're immensely grateful to the two of you for what you bring to the table. So, what we do at Connexus is we aim to foster meaningful discussions, share valuable insights, and cultivate a collaborative environment amongst women leaders and male allies from different countries, industries, and organizations. And joining me at the table today are remarkable guests who have shattered glass ceilings and expanded their business across borders. Aditi, Deepti, Kavita, thank you all for being here today.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Devapriya. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devapriya.
Thank you.
I'll do a quick
Thanks for
round
having
of
us.
introductions, starting with you, Aditi. Aditi Banerjee is the co-founder and CEO of Magic Billion. She has successfully expanded her business into multiple international markets. At Magic Billion, Aditi is responsible for developing global business and manages all client accounts. And Aditi, she's got a lot of awards and accolades, but she was commended as an Asian Women of Achievement for Public Service in 2019, Aditi, in London. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And helming a cross-border multi-country business, Aditi will add valuable insights to our conversation today, which is all about women scaling across borders and facing all the challenges and jumping over the hurdles that it entails.
Thank
Now,
you.
coming to you, Kavita. Kavita is an international business growth strategist and bilateral trade expert with marketing experience in the South Asia, Middle East, and UK markets. Having served in roles such as country manager for South of Invest North Ireland and the Inward Investment Head Technology, Digital and Creative for Department of International Trade, it's called DBT now. When I met Kavita, it was called DIT, and she was doing this for the Northern Powerhouse. Kavita has helped several businesses to grow across borders, and I'm very keen to hear her perspectives on the topic under discussion today. And last but not the least, Deepti Atrish, we were having a wonderful discussion about what she does while we were waiting to go live. Deepti is the CEO of PCL Health, which is a remote monitoring and health analytics ecosystem which empowers the health and well-being of senior adults using IoT, AI, and computing. And all of us who've got senior parents, I think, we know how important this is. Very, very eager to know more about what you do, Deepti, inside of PCL Health. Deepti also has 20 years of experience, over 20 years of experience as a technology entrepreneur, managing a large digital agency and founding 2 startups. So Powerful women, fabulous speakers, and let's dive straight into our conversation. So, in an increasingly interconnected world, the opportunities for business to expand their reach and tap into new markets are plentiful. And we are seeing this every single day. It's not something new that we're talking about, it's happening all around us. Yet, scaling a company across borders can be a daunting task with numerous complexities to consider. And I think even more so when you're a woman in business or a woman founder. So I have a set of questions. I'm going to ask all of you one by one, but we'll keep it very interactive. We're looking forward to our viewers to also really contribute with your experiences and your questions. So let's just make it very interactive. But Kavita, I want to ask you. I want to begin with you and want to ask you to help us explore key strategies and insights for expanding a business internationally. So, for instance, you've had a lot of macro experience. You've had extensive experience in navigating government relations across South Asia, the Middle East, and the UK market. So that's quite an expanse. So, tell me, Kavita, how can one leverage governmental policies and regulations to facilitate market entry and business growth? And I want to start with this simply because there's a lot available, but many a times we don't have access to that information, and that needs to be demystified. So, over to you, Kavita.
Thank you, Devapriya. Absolutely a great question, having spent so much time in economic development. So, today, what we have realized is we cannot ignore the geopolitics, we cannot ignore the social and the geographical barriers that come in. So unlike earlier, we could create businesses out of vacuum. You have a desire to be in a particular geography and you just go set up, find your clients, you can start from scratch. But today, the policy compendium is such an important tool. It is such a critical, way to go forward, because policies of every country changes as per its needs, the growing populace, the kind of immigrations that happen. For instance, with UK, having served the UK government for a very long time, UK came up with something that's very, very close to my heart called the Leveling Up. So what did Leveling Up do? Leveling Up was about unlocking billions of worth of potential in regions that are lesser known in the UK, the regions outside the city called London, right? All of UK had some of the best universities, great infrastructure, phenomenal talent. Because for any business to thrive, international business especially, your skill base, your talent is a very, very important component, right? So this, considering the policies, it is so important for one to be very acclimatized to the policy, not just when you are keen to expand your business internationally, for the existing international clients in a particular geography, and also for domestic businesses, because the policies around your own terrain affect you directly or indirectly. So UK earlier had come up with something called Growing Back Better. So Leveling Up actually feeds into that. So what does it do? It identifies infrastructure, the skill gaps, and it funds to grow a particular sector. We have been connecting Indian companies desirous of, irrespective of size or scale, desirous of growing in the UK market. So what does that role really do with policy? We connect them to areas that are growing, work or sectors in their areas of interest. For instance, if it was AI and data and quantum, which is of predominant importance in the UK today, there are a few city councils, a few areas of UK that have policies and have funding available to make use of the infrastructure and the assets there. And there is government funds, and there is an entire ecosystem that has been created that guides you to thrive in that ecosystem. So we connect companies and to the resources available financially, talent-wise, and an ecosystem that encourages you to thrive. So that is where policy comes in. It is important to know what are the focus areas of the government, where are the grants available, What are the gaps? What are the strengths? Because the gaps and the strengths are the two areas that the government typically invests heavily in. Gaps because it sees a tremendous potential to grow. Strengths because it knows that is where the revenue is hinged at. So that is where the entire play of policy today has become one of the key strategies for any business, be it domestic or the international, for the existing players or the new entrants.
Very, very interesting, because you talk about the gaps and the strengths. And you know it from an internal perspective. I'm just wondering how so many women founders out there can have access to this information. I got
Absolutely.
lucky. I think I got lucky because the reason I could really scale in the UK with Connexus was because I got access to all of this information when one of our advisory board members, Sharon Jandu, she invited me to represent Connexus at the House of Lords. And Aditi, you know this story. There was We got connected to the entire ecosystem there, and for most Indians, UK is London, right? And what happened was I was able to discover, as a business owner, that there's life beyond London, because we discovered the Northern Powerhouse. We discovered Leeds, Manchester, that entire belt. And a lot of what we do right now is based in the Northern Powerhouse region, right? And Kavita, we did those roundtables with Mayor Tracy Brabin and all. They came here. We did so. A very interesting partnership was forged. So I feel what you very rightly tapped into there, and we'll build on it later as we move on, is that access to information, access to knowledge, access to mentorship, access to partnership is very, very fundamental and very key to women being able to successfully scale across borders. I think that is something. You talked about gaps and strengths. Strengths are many. The knowledge is a big gap even now, and hoping that we're able to address that in different formats. So thanks, Kavita, for setting the tone. Moving on to Aditi. Aditi, you've been there, done that, and you've straddled two countries when it comes to setting up your business, with an office in Noida, with an office in London. You manage it seamlessly. I mean, I don't know how, but you managed to make it all work. And your father is your partner, which is absolutely incredible. I'm pretty much in awe of this whole, the way this works. So, wanted to ask you specifically, and in the light of what Kavita has also discussed, is that at Magic Billion, you're operating in 10 countries and sending 1,800 people abroad. What do you do? I mean, how does it work when you manage clients and expand your business globally? And as another question to that, I want to also ask you, what do you recommend should be the initial three steps, not more, just three sharp steps that you would recommend for identifying the right market when scaling a business?
Okay, great. Well, firstly, thank you for having me on this panel. Very happy to be here. So, Magic Billion is a global talent management company. Yeah, and I mean, in simple terms, it's a recruitment plus plus company. So we support global employers in getting talent from India. We help the talent with any upskilling or certification required, and then we close the gap with the visa and immigration support. So it's sort of an end-to-end solutioning, both for employers as well as candidates. That's what we do. We're a 6-year-old company. We were set up in 2018. And now, 6 years later, yes, I mean, I think I can definitely call ourselves scaled, because we are operating in 10 countries. We've got 120 of our own team members in India. And we serve about 100 plus global clients and have sent 1,800 people abroad. But honestly, this year, our goal is to be sending 4,000 Indians out to global destinations just this year. So, yes, we have scaled substantially. Now, I think that sort of links into your next question. But before I get to that, the nature of our business was such that we needed international presence so that we were closer to global clients. And hence, I'm based out of London. And we needed an India team, which, once the requirements came in from global employers, could then service the delivery, right? And the delivery part is in India. So it was just in the nature of the business that we needed one arm internationally and one arm within the country. And that's how we've sort of built it up. Um, not been an easy journey, but I'm sure we are going to talk about some of that a little bit later in terms of the challenges and how we see that getting better. So the second part of your question was about how you think about a new market and three key things to consider. Okay. I mean, what I'm going to say is going to be, of course, different for different industries, right? So if you're setting up a plant somewhere for manufacturing, you're going to look at it differently. But for my industry in particular, or I think for any service driven industry, I would say number one, you need to know whether you have a product market fit. I mean, will your product that you're taking to the world, will it work in that market? So in our case, because it's an international product being Indian talent, is there a need internationally for it? Answer is yes. So tomorrow, if I want to set up an office in the US, I want to set up an office in Germany, the answer would be yes, because they're desperate for people. So first would be product market fit. The second thing I would say is government regulation. Legally, is it permitted to bring in foreigners? And is that path of entry easy? Are visas in place? Are there geopolitics, like Kavita was talking about? Geopolitically, are we connected as countries where there are, for legal skilled migration, are there pathways to bring in from India? So, legal regulations and frameworks, important to look at from a startup or any organization's perspective. That's number two. And the third thing I would say is you need to be able to financially think around this. Are people in that market willing to pay for the business that you're working in? So I'll give you an easy example. Canada, desperate for people. Every second day you will see a shortage report coming out from that country. Labor shortage is massive. B, regulatory wise, it's all in place. The government is looking for people. So number one and two are fine. But number three, where employers are meant to pay for talent, is a big problem there. Because there are so many people desperate to go to Canada. I've had employers who have turned back to me and said, how much will you pay me to take people from India? Because I'm willing to give you a work permit. So as a financial model, it doesn't work for me because I don't want to straddle Indian candidates with the cost. It should be with the employer. So those are the three things I would say, and it's not always that all three fit in line, but all three should fit in line for you to start looking at a new market.
Yeah, I mean, that's extremely insightful. And though you said that it's different for different industries, but I would say this is pretty much what every industry should be looking at: product market fit, pricing, or sort of even the demand supply situation. And I didn't know this about Canada at all. I know that a lot of Indians go there, but honestly, one doesn't really think about it that way till you hear from somebody who's actually doing the work and analyzing the markets, and that's quite an insight, interestingly. Yeah, thanks for that, Aditi. Thanks. And
Sure.
yeah, we will discuss the challenges as we go along, because challenges actually, I mean, we were discussing this earlier as well behind the scenes, is that the challenges are what strengthen us. I think they teach us so much more, and it is a good idea to have a conversation around challenges and really put it out there so that more people can get inspired. So, thank you for that. Moving to Deepti. Deepti, it's inspiring what you do to support seniors living independently. I wanted to ask you broadly if you could tell us what PCL Health does to support seniors to live independently at home, and more importantly, what drove your focus on this area? What market access strategies have you employed?
First of all, yeah, thank you very much for this panel discussion, and amazed to see the experience all of you have got here actually. And yeah, coming back to what drove is was like my personal reason of not able to see what's happening with my mother when she was diagnosed in 2017 or 18 with dementia. And I realized, like, she lives on her own independently, And I was very anxious because I'd lost my father and father-in-law in a very short span of 4 months, and they were only in late 60s. And one of them had a heart attack, and it was like, why did we not know? The body gives signals, plenty of signals, before something of that level happens. And I've been in technology for very long. I've been like technology enthusiast into trying everything. That time I thought, why are we not using any technology to know what deterioration is happening? Why? And then I got the answers that because it really doesn't help the bigger companies. Healthcare companies make the most of the money in across the globe, so it doesn't really help them to empower people. That in short, that was the research I came to know. But at the same time, it was there. I mean, how long can you not have it? And then came COVID. It was like suddenly required. It was in need of the hour. The more people, the more technology you have, the better it is in terms of saving lives of people. So that was the reason somehow, I had my own problem because I was very anxious. How do I look after my mother's health? How do I know what deterioration is happening? I really wanted to know. And what can I do? And then when I did my research, I came to know I'm not the only one here. And I'm not the only Asian per se. There are a lot of British people as well who have the same problem because they spend a lot of money for their, seniors, for their parents in care home or care at home. It's not cheap. We're talking about, tens and thousands every month. That goes into their care, and they have no numbers to see how are they doing. There's no there's nothing in terms of technology. It's all paperwork. The carer will go to the home and then they're writing. So I knew that it's a problem, not just for me, it's for everybody. And then came the COVID. The problem was also very important right now to basically get into place and all. But uh, I think we're still early, as in, people suddenly, the adoption of technologies, be it with clinicians, be it with patients, be it with family members, it was accelerated. It was not just like the Zoom call, it was everywhere. Like people were doing SpO2, sending the readings, doing blood pressure, sending the readings, writing on the paper. It was accelerated, definitely. So now there was a need, more of it. That, okay, I wish, people were saying, virtual ward concept came in for managing patients at home. And so I would say it suddenly was the right time as well. And but the sector we are trying to get into is like people like me who live here and my mother who lives in India. I'm right now in India, in Haridwar. So how do I make sure that international borders, and there's a data problem, you can't share that data. There are a lot of complexity on that level as well. What can be shared and what cannot be shared because you're in different continents altogether. So there has been challenges. I definitely would agree, and this has been like really difficult in terms of getting approvals. NHS, we are working with some certain, we got approval to work with one of the hospital, two of the hospitals as well, and there are some care homes which also are asking us to get started with managing, but it's definitely not that straightforward because of the compliances that you need to follow, the regulations, and the suddenly a lot of people are there in this. When we started, not many people were there, but now it's like a very sort of a crowded place. So
And I mean,
that's
what's the sort of acceptance to this concept?
so that's where I mean, now again, like Aditi said, who is going to pay for it?
Yeah.
The money wise, the question is it the customer you are charging? Is it NHS you're charging? Is it care home you're charging? Is it who are you charging? And that's where everything boggles down. People want it, but they want
Mm.
NHS to pay. Now NHS wants it, but NHS wants a lot of have you done this? There's like God, 400 something things that you need to do, and we've been like really working on it to make sure. So we are on certified NHS supplier as well. Yeah, so it's not straightforward. There are there are a lot of people who got funded in tune of 400 $500 million in the same space as well. So yeah, it's suddenly boomed, like okay, this is the right thing, let's get funded, let's get into this and try and solve. We're trying to solve a real problem. Somebody who's got diabetes, they need proper maintenance management of their disease every day on day, what they ate and how did it change their the vitals, and how are they responding? Are they sleeping well? How's the energy and all? So in short, yeah, we have been in the industry, which is now extremely competitive. And the reason why I came into this was mainly to make a connection, not just like, a doctor is not going to have time for taking care of all the patients. And every family member would have time to know how their parents are doing. If they want to know, they would like to. So what we created was a connected care platform. So we create a family circle where I'm connected with my mother and so is my sister. So now we are both connected, and the doctor and the carer. So my mother has a full-time carer. Now it's a family. We call it circle of care, which is how we are different, and our approach is different. But yeah, that's what I can say. But people are, yeah, adapting. They're like, but not like they're not like literally ready because they want NHS to pay. And yeah, that's where we are.
And I can see what you're saying has touched a chord with our viewers, because there's a whole parallel discussion happening in the comment section, which is, so Shanti, Mark, and Suparna are all three are based in the UK, and there's this whole discussion around how how outrageous and how expensive elder care is. They are talking about the UK, but it's everywhere. And I think
Yeah,
Shanti is yeah, and all of us are sort of, in a situation where we're looking into elder care because we are directly
yeah.
impacted. So interesting, very interesting what you're doing. Very interesting what you're doing, Aditi
If
and
you
Kavita.
allow me, I will very quickly share one slide, if that okay, if that gives you a whole picture of how everything is connected. Is that okay?
Okay, I just hope technology will permit it, because I don't know, I've not
No.
enabled. You can try, Deepthi, or we can probably come back to it in case
Okay,
you try,
okay,
we can't.
okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So thanks very much. I think that's what you've said has sparked off an entire, a lot of thoughts in all our minds, and a discussion in the comment section as well. And so you've sort of put a spotlight on your respective businesses and some of the challenges, and more essentially, as Aditi mentioned, that the product market fit. So it's the what's in it for me. Most of the times what I see businesses doing is approaching everything from a producer's mindset. So you come with a sort of a product, and you retrofit it to the market, and then you try to find the consumers around it and build the market and the ecosystem around it. But what I love that the two of you have done is honestly, you've tapped into the need, you've identified the need, you've found the void in the market, and you've sort of not. I mean, you've looked at a blue ocean strategy rather than a bleeding red ocean, and you've created your solutions to address the pain points of the people who need it. So, extremely valuable tips there, and I think that is the right way to approach things, and that's the reason why you're able to sort of do the kind of work you do and scale in the way you've been doing. Um, from business to a topic that is very close to my heart, and I know it's close to all of your hearts, because we are women, end of the day, and we're navigating our challenges and our businesses, being the minority so far. So I will sort of bring the conversation to diversity and equity. And I want to ask Kavita, and here, some of our questions can, my questions or the conversation can get a little, I won't say controversial, but interesting. But that's what conversations are all about. So I will ask Kavita, Kavita, having navigated choppy terrain in markets like South Asia, the Middle East, and more importantly in the UK, when was the first time you felt the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because we sort of, I would say we professionally grew up at a time when we were expected to man up. Put on your boots, get on with it. No conversations about diversity. What on earth is equity? Just get to work and do it shoulder to shoulder like a man, while going through everything that you are going through as a woman, and handling all your responsibilities beautifully. So
Yeah,
for you, when you were
great.
in the international ecosystem, it must have hit you harder. Share with us.
Absolutely. I should start with the story of my first job. So this was a big IT major, an Indian company. Funnily, I was the only woman in IT sales there. And the office did not even have a toilet for a woman. So I had to run across the road to the British Council Library to make use of it and come back. So that is where I started my career. And I think being in an ecosystem like that, I was treated like one of the many men. We didn't have a choice. If you wanted to thrive, if you wanted to have a career in the corporate space, you either went into coding or you took something as bold as selling in IT. Business development wasn't a woman's job then. I think that somewhere also blinded me to the glass ceiling. I kind of forgot that I'm supposed to be treated differently because I'm a woman, because the next few industries that I straddled into were again male dominant, but it did have space for a woman to come and make a difference. So I think, Debriya, it is a lot about your personal drive, okay, to start off. Not every industry is accepting, does happily accept or embrace you with open arms when you want to include a woman. Okay, so this is as for the scenario that I grew in, and I was fortunate that I was encouraged as a woman to really get into industries which was very typecasted for women, for men, sorry, But now coming to my experiences, well, in the international markets, I've largely been into the economic development space. Aditi rightly pointed out that the biggest challenge for international business today is lack of talent. We do not have talent. And if we do have talent, their skills are not hireable. They are not work ready. Either they need upskilling, they need reskilling, or they need a whole gamut of skilling. A fresh graduate today is not employable, right? So with this entire diversity piece, when I know a lot of people who thought there are women who are making a fuss about it, there are people who are, really pushing hard for equity. For me, through my learning in the economic development market, it's a very, very simple translation of a problem to solution. Today, if you are having dearth of talent, DEI is the best way to staff, the best way to create a talent pipeline, a talent pool. This actually congregates, it assembles people from various backgrounds, various, perspectives. What better can it be than a scenario of a workforce with diverse perspectives and diverse backgrounds? But this is again a very, very difficult barrier to cross because equality, equity, inclusion are translated very, very differently in different industries. Like manufacturing still finds it very, very difficult to accept women, whereas IT has embraced women, especially the innovative sectors where women have been triumphing time and again. We have an example here with Deepti. So women, I think, have been, nuanced with those fine changes and the need to come up with innovation. So where I really see a screaming need for inclusion and equity is in a growing landscape of the talent market, the talent pipeline. We do not have skills today. We do not have a talent pipeline. So I feel this is where I felt if there were more women coming out. Let me give you statistics. I think this is as per the Government of India records. Post-independence, we had about 22 women in the workforce in India. It slowly went up to about 35%. Today, sadly, when India is poised for being a developed nation, we're looking at a 2040 and a 2050 deadline for a lot of growth of the country, but women are left behind. The sad statistic of today is we've gone back to 23% women in the workforce. So what have we done to encourage the many challenges that a woman goes through, be it as an entrepreneur or be it as a employee in a corporate world? So I think this is where DEI comes in. It is not just a fancy phrase or employment, meeting certain quotas of DEI. Today, it is important to recognize it is a need for economic development. It is a need not just to recognize the underprivileged or the minorities. It is a need to recognize that they come with certain levels of empathy, which today the corporate world is thriving on, which is design thinking. Design thinking is all based on empathy, where these sections of the society can bring to the table the women, the underprivileged, the disabled, people who have a different sexual orientation. They will come with the deep sensitivity, the empathy, the sense of innovation. So I feel rather than making it a very fancy thing, today it is a need. It's an economic development need screaming at every country. There is no country today that does not face a talent pipeline issue. So I think DI is a real solution to a problem if we look at it that way, rather than meeting quotas or making it sound very fancy in the corporate world.
Thanks for sharing your story, Kavita. It's resonated with quite a few. And Sam, our good friend Samantha Wall, in the comments, is saying that she's also sharing that she was only one of three women in a 150 workforce in the IT network section of Siemens in the 90s. We've all got similar stories. And Shanti says that she spent 20 years in the world of finance, where she was surrounded by men who assumed that she was the assistant and not the consultant. So, I mean, it happens. Go get a cup of coffee, write down our meetings. Oh, but I'm here to do the presentation. It happens. I mean, my last full-time role was the last full-time corporate role was as the marketing director of a very large Alcobev company. And I remember an instance when we were in Kerala on a market visit, and our market visits were all the ahatas and the pubs and the bars and the thekas, as they call shops, liquor shops in India. And we were in Kerala, which is a 100% literate state, by the way. Okay, so education really, I don't know what role it plays, but we were entering one of our markets, which was a small liquor store. It was on premise, so you had people drinking there as well. And we were entering, and I was stopped at the entrance, and I was told that you're a woman, you cannot enter. Mind you, I'm the marketing director of that brand. My brands are inside that. I want to go. I want to see what the consumers are drinking. I want to see what competition is. I want to see my product, how it's doing. And I was stopped. I was like literally, physically a hand out, saying that, madam, you cannot go in. And all my male counterparts, and I only had male counterparts, so I was only woman there, they all streamed in, they were welcomed. And I went and I sat in the car and fuming and sort of wondering at the irony of it all. So yeah, there are stories and there are stories. I think we all, the reason why we are doing what we are and we're talking about is that the personal story really propels you forward to literally live your purpose. So yeah, there are a lot of things to be said, and this conversation can go on, but I will move on to asking Aditi that, Aditi, how do you prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion within your company's global operations? I know you deal a lot with, men. I mean, at least that's the impression that I have from all the posts and things that I see on social media. But I'm sure being a woman leader, you're embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into your policies and processes every day. So could you just give us a bit of an insight into that?
Sure. Let me just premise this by saying that maybe some of what I say is a little contentious. So excuse
Right
me
ahead.
if we have
Right ahead.
maybe some
This is the right
differing,
place for it. Yes.
differing opinions. So let me split this into two parts. So one part is um, the experiences and how you look at something based on the industries that you represent, right? So I started my career in the later part of my 20s. I spent at the World Bank in Washington, where we were looking at low income countries, middle income countries, and really supporting development of economic development plans for those countries and how minorities could be represented. So how I thought at that time and how I continue to think about government policies is about keeping various incentives for women and other minorities, could be religious, could be others, up to a certain playing field where they have not had access. Absolutely. However, when you become a business owner and you yourself are implementing, um, various sort of products and taking things to scale and all of that, uh, you look at it a little bit differently, because now if somebody were to tell me within Magic Billion you need to have a quota of 20% to be filled by women, I would say I don't want quotas. I mean, may the best person prevail for that job. Now, to start out, I should say that within Magic Billion, we are 50% men and 50% women. That has not been something I have actively driven. That has been something where the skill set has matched the requirement for that role. And that's how it has organically developed, right? Now, if I was a business owner in a manufacturing team where people had to work on machines and it's sheer brute force which is required, strength, you can't expect 50% there to be women, so it's a little bit industry specific. In my industry, which is a service industry, it's not IT, it's not any of these others, though IT, I think, very much can have a 50-50 split. It's about intellect, it has nothing to do with your physical strength. But that being said, when CVs come to us and we want to fill out a particular position, it is always about, what are you bringing to the table? What's your experience? Can you do justice to this role? And what's your expectation on salary? Those are pretty much the indicators we use. However, there are exceptions to the rule. And this is where I think it becomes also a little bit specific to the culture and context in which you're operating. So in India, till date, which is where we are expanding our own internal team, if there is a role which entails massive amount of traveling, so for example, we have centers across India where we operate our skilling centers. Now these centers are not necessarily in large towns. In smaller little 3-4 tier cities, women are not comfortable going there. They will tell you upfront in an interview they're not comfortable going there. They're not comfortable, given their family requirements, to travel once a week. A man is, but she's not. It's their choice. I would hire anyone who's comfortable, but they are not comfortable. I'm a big proponent of giving women a chance, not a chance, but to step back into their careers once they take a break after pregnancy. I'm a big proponent of it. In the early years of Magic Billion, we gave about 5 women, when they took a 3-year, 6-year gap and then they came back because they had it in them. Within the first 3 months, all 3 left. All of them actually left off, all 5 of them. Because any time the child would be sick, they would be at home, not the husband, ever. So, keeping these cultural contexts in mind, I realize it's actually not 50-50 from a culture perspective. I'm not getting it back in the country in which I'm trying to make it work. So it's not a very simple topic to talk about because it's got so many nuances to it. So that's on our team front. From the client front, which is the other end of the spectrum for us, our clients always make it very clear they are gender agnostic. Anyone can fill that role, except for one industry, which is construction. They are not able to put women there. Also, similar to Kavita's story, they don't have the infrastructure to manage women there. I've even had German clients who've said, we are very happy to take women candidates from India with a BTech in civil engineering, but we just won't know how to manage them on the sites because there are no toilets, there's no infrastructure set up for them. But otherwise, 99.9% absolutely agnostic. And the last bit are the candidates who we send out. 95% are boys and men. And only 5% are girls, not because the roles can't be filled by women. The parents, the husbands, the brothers are not comfortable sending them out. So, I realize there are only certain battles I can fight.
Yes.
At the moment, the battle is to scale the company. So I will take whoever's looking at those opportunities. But this is a real challenge. I will happily say, though, that year on year, that percentage is marginally increasing. Yeah. So from a 5% women, we'd move to a 6% women, we'd move to a 7%. And I hope that in 10 years, if we are having a similar chat, I'm able to say that 50% Indian candidates who we are sending are girls.
Yeah, there's a lot of reality in what you shared just now. I think there were a lot of nodding heads. Pardon me. And what I tell a lot of young women startup founders is that, you know, build your teams at home. They're so good at building teams at the workplace. And this realization dawned on me also a lot later because I took a lot for granted. When I was in the corporate space, my mom was my team. I could do everything. I mean, I would just pick up my bags and I would just head out because you have a mom who's there, who's looking after your kids, who's looking after your house, making sure provisions are there, the noses are wiped, the projects are done, everything is done, and I'm just globe-trotting with a mission to advance my career and build my career, and it all happened. And much later I realized that women, we are very naturally inclined to and we are capable of building teams at work and integrating those teams and motivating them and handing out detailed job descriptions and delegating and all of that. And we needed to do a lot of that at home as well, because we have to let go of that cape. There's no heroism in being, wearing that cape and saying that we're superwomen. And it's okay to ask for help, because and there's no point assuming that the people back at home will know what you need. So make the job lists, spell out what you want the husband to do, what you want your mother-in-law to do, what you want this, in India we have staff, so what you want them to do, what you want neighbors and extended families to do, and what you want your kids to do. And that is something I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's like literally scratching a bit of the issue out here, but even that would really enable women to free themselves and get out of this. And as Julie says, is that we need a rebalance. Of course, we need a rebalance for any of this to change, but everything is not doom and gloom. I love the statistics that you shared, Aditi. The fact that from 5% it's moving to 6%, and hopefully 10 years from now you'll be able to report a different statistic. 3 years to that. And and just to take the whole conversation forward from where Aditi left off, is Deepthi, you've you've led a large digital marketing company. You've set it up in the UK. You've obviously employed a lot of people, and now you're in a very interesting new area. You've worked with corporates as well, right? What is Kavita spoke about shattering glass ceilings, but the problem happens a little earlier. Glass ceilings are, of course, a reality. They are there, but what about the broken rung? And on the ladder to success, and what is your take on it? What has been your experience with it? Because not everyone
Um,
reaches the glass ceiling.
Yeah, so first of all, I'd say I resonate a lot with what Aditi said, because however, my team is all technology because we're in technology, the recent PCL health team. And I also found the same thing. I mean, I tried to include as much women I could, but obviously based on the talent, I used to make sure my HR is interviewing more, both of them, and then trying to see, if you can get women or, you know, to work with us, but the experience was not so great. The children, their in-law, their family, and they're so good, but they can't do it. They just would say, "Sorry, I can't. I'm not going to come. I mean, I can't really. I have to take like next 3 days off. I have to attend this wedding. I have to do this." I mean, the work doesn't really always come first. So that's what one thing I wanted to say, that it was really shocking for me that, please, this is important. You can't just tell me that you can't do it. You're just going, for a week or so. I saw a less of a professionalism on that side. Now, coming back to the fact that how I started my career, again, similar. I was not like, I think there was only, yeah, I was the only one actually in my first job as well, as a when I did. And then when I started my business, I made sure in India, the digital marketing team that we had women, but the challenges were so much. that I saw people leaving their, like, changing the priorities. And I was very like head on that I'm nothing comes, like I have to do what I have to do. So I was able to excel. I would say that when you know what you want to do, then suddenly everything starts working out for you. Suddenly you start meeting the bigger clients, you start closing the deals. So I saw it was all in the mindset of that, what is it that you want to do, and then everything also, other things also, they get the place. It's not that you are ignoring or neglecting everything else. Suddenly people come and my husband would take over certain things where I'm not available, or there has to be an understanding that I'm on a job which needs me, so I'm not there. So that's where I got, I would say, my leadership role came in. I was able to excel. I was able to present myself well and excel in the career. And yeah, that's how I feel. It is a balance, I agree, but at the same time, it's a focus, and then explaining your family and everyone around that this is how it's going to be. I'm going to meet my target. I'm going to do my things, but I'm not going to compromise on that. But I think that there's a balance, but also determination also, which I do agree that you don't find that, and then you feel like, okay, I'm doing everything for my team, but I do very clearly see that their priority is not like, and which is right. It's okay. You have to make your priorities correct. Like, not everyone will have the, probably the background that I had. I was able to execute, and I was very clear on what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, so much of it resonates, whatever each one of you is saying, and I'm like just nodding my head off literally, and it's striking deep chord, not just with us, but with people in the audience. And I really thank you, all of you, for contributing as in our viewers. For adding such insightful comments, and everything is so aligned. And at this stage, I mean, I want to ask you something a little controversial, and it's not directed at anybody, but Aditi, you said you want you were going to discuss something. Your comment took us into that zone where we were okay to talk about a lot of things. I'm going to ask all three of you, and please feel free to pick it up, whoever wants to. Uh, Tell me, as you've scaled your businesses across countries, and especially in the India UK corridor, have you faced any challenges in building a global business being a woman, and specifically a woman of color? Any of you, all of you?
I can go first if that's okay. Um, the short answer is no. Yeah. And I'm saying no because I'm definitely aware of segments where that happens. And I think primarily where that happens is when you're actively seeking external funding. So as a startup, if you go to the VC space, PE space, and you start to raise funds, then yes, that's a very specific. I mean, I think that number for women-led startups, it's sitting at between 2 to 5% in terms of VC funding, which goes to female-led startups. So,
Much less.
or perhaps lesser. Absolutely. I mean, the fact that it's in single digits already is alarming, but if it's lesser than 2%, that's even worse. So I'm aware that in the funding space, in the investment space, it's a big problem to break that stereotype and glass ceiling. But if you're, bootstrapped and you're cash positive and you're sort of running your own entity, then the only possible space to feel that could be either in your own teams who you're building within, or from your clients. There are only two stakeholders where that could have an impact. And for us, obviously, your own teams will not. You're the ones who are giving them employment. So, of course, not. And then in terms of clients, because perhaps we deal with more of the aspirational countries for Indians, which are more the Western economies, we have not faced it so far. But again, such stereotypes exist internationally as well for the finance sector, for those kinds of industries which are more male dominated, and we don't work with those industries, right? I mean, our industries of focus typically are healthcare, a lot of women, Hospitality, a lot of women. Manufacturing, yes, a lot of men, but they recognize that in a service industry, there could be a female leader on the other side. So, it's a little bit of that nuance which I think has worked to our advantage. So, short answer is I have not faced discrimination as a female or a female of color in the industry in which I operate.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing so candidly.
I mean,
Any,
yeah,
yeah.
I'd like to also add the same thing exactly. While I have 22 years of technology experience and worked with many people, many clients, so I haven't really seen that discrimination when I'm going for a meeting and making, like, closing a deal or something. That's been all right, absolutely. But when it comes to funding and you're a women-led business, oh my God, the amount of work we've done and the amount of my other the same competitors would have done, like, if I've done 100, they've done 10, they're going to get the bigger funding. So it's not really that great actually when it comes to funding. But apart from that, in general, my experience is exactly how Aditi mentioned. It's not like you're not heard or you can't sell.
No, that's very encouraging. Yeah. Kavita?
Yeah, I do have a few experiences, but not to the extent of discrimination. But yes, it does challenge you as a woman leader, more so in the Indian market than internationally, I should say. That's for the women perspective. Since I deal with a lot with the political brass, when you're in a political meeting, more often than not, you are with colleagues. It could be junior, but male colleagues. I have been in situations where I'm speaking to a male politician. They refuse to respond to your questions, or they would respond looking at your male colleague, irrespective of who was really senior and who was the one who was really cutting the ice there. So there are times I've signaled to my colleagues that they will not speak up for this reason, that I had to make a point as a woman sitting in the room. I still remember this was in Maharashtra just a year and 18 months ago. We were in this meeting that we had our own politicians who were happy to address the expat leaders in the room, but refused to recognize a female Indian leader, responded to every question that they had to say. And he turned around and said, "So it would be nice to receive something from you." When the expat leader actually signed off the beginning and saying, "You will hear from Kavita," I said, "It will be good to be in touch with you and hear from you." So I think we have a lot of that still in this country. And I still remember in the Kerala market, this was a big business export meet that we were in. I had this gentleman who has business set up in the US and in the Ireland and practically in a lot of European places. He came up and said, "Ma'am, I wouldn't let my wife and daughter to go out and speak out in conferences like you." I said, "Why is that, sir? You're dealing with women, with a lot of men, but can you stand shoulder to shoulder with them? Can you be as intellectual as them?" I said, being of a different gender has never limited my intellectual capacities. So I've seen a lot of this happening within India than outside. Outside, it has been about the person of color. I did have people after conferences, and when we were addressing really huge conferences, I had somebody walk up to me and say, "Well, I didn't know that Indians could speak English. I didn't know that you could shut off that man, that male journalist. I didn't know that you all are well read in economic development. Do you all really travel? Have you Indians really seen the world? That you brought in so much of perspectives?" So sometimes it's racial. You don't really know if it's because you belong to the minority tribe. Sometimes it is because you're a person of color. Because I was very particularly asked, I didn't know that Indian women could speak English. I didn't know that Indian women could have studied. And I said, "Well, I studied in your own country." So we do have this, but I think the best way to deal with it is to make your point there. More often than not, I'm like quietly sitting and texting my colleagues and saying, "Do not respond. I'm going to take it from here and I alone." When you have to make a point, I think it's so important for you to be the woman in the room. I think the yesteryears when we started a career, they'd say, "Try and be the man with the balls." I would say, no, just try and be the woman in the room. I think it's important for one to recognize you to be the woman in the room, the perspectives that you bring to the table.
And I think awesome sharing there, very candid. I think another thing is that I really believe that if you can see it, you can be it. So for our future leaders, future women leaders, I think it's great that there are women like you who are standing up at these conferences and shutting down people, and not just and just being there, showing up, being visible, leading your businesses, and doing what you do with so much grace, finesse, and success. So there's something to be said about all of that. And time sort of flies when we're having a good discussion, and I cannot believe that we're done with 1 hour, but I will ask you one thing. Quickly go around the room. I really want to hear from each one of you. What comes to mind when you hear the term lead her, and why do you think it's important in today's world? Very quickly, if you could offer your perspectives, and then we'll have to wrap this up.
Yeah, for me, Devpriya, it is recognizing the leader in her. I think every woman has this innate skill of being a leader. She's always leading, she's problem solving, she's innovating to keep her life going, be it a homemaker, be it a career person, be it an entrepreneur. I think this, I think the way you labeled it, lead her, is something that encapsulates it all, that we all have a leader, recognizing that leader in her. I think that's a phenomenal concept, and that is something that everyone can assimilate and relate to.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I read lead her, to me it was both meant for a leader who's a woman, as well as, like Kavita said, the leader in the woman, as well as lead her, like leading the ones who are looking at that mentorship support to get led. Because I think, when I look back at my 20s, I was desperately looking for some female leaders I could look up to. Because if you look up, and what we've been talking about often, and even in this conversation, have been women who are possibly at the 70% and below in the company, right? They are not, I have not spoken about, for example, within Magic Billion, how many women are in the leadership team. And in the leadership team, we only have one woman out of 8. So while the 50-50 exists for the rest of the company, but if you then reduce the funnel, there are very few at leadership level. So when the likes of Indra Nui and all came up, and of course, at the bank, the vice presidents who were then women and slowly going up, then you can look at yourself and say, okay, I want to be her. That's where I want to get to. And that is increasing now, but has been less in the past. And I think forums like these, so the work that Connexus is doing, other women-led organizations which are trying to put this front and center to say, hey, yes, the stats are bad, they're perhaps improving, but what can we do collectively to make this better? So it's honestly great, Devpriya, what you're doing with Connexus and really trying to move the needle on this. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you, Aditi.
I think I also want to add here by saying that it's really cool how it sounds. It's got a sound of leader, as in leader, lead her. This is cool. Obviously, and it's a very important or a crucial initiative where you're taking care of gender equality in leadership roles and promoting the diversity and inclusion as well. I personally think that it is the need of the time, and by this basically amplifies the women's leadership, the sound of it actually, and the impact of women in various communities and various leadership roles. It really represents that. So I think it's quite cool, actually. I really like it.
Thank you, Dipti. So so when we coined Lead Her, for us, it represented a proactive and intentional approach to promoting and supporting female leadership within organizations and the broader business community. And it did involve creating an environment where women are not only encouraged to take on leadership roles, but are also provided with the resources, mentorships, and the opportunities needed to thrive. So basically, the whole provide equipping them as well, not just telling them,
Yeah.
okay, become the leaders. How? Create that ecosystem, give them the tools and the ammunition to go out there and do what they have to, either as an executive or an entrepreneur. Women in business is not just business women. It's about, you're impacting business, you're leading businesses. So whether you're a corporate woman or whether you're an entrepreneur, it applies to you. You are a lead her. And at Connexus, and Aditi, as you rightfully said, lead her is also about the mentorship. And you know that's mentorship is literally the foundation on which Connexus is built. We've got an amazing mentor board. We lean into them for a lot of things. We encourage a lot of leaders to come and join us on our mentor board. And all of you as mentors are doing an exceptional job to show up for Connexus. And our mission is to enable women founders and leaders to build memorable brands, profitable businesses, engage stakeholders, and thriving communities. And each of these four is very important. Keeping purpose at their core, because very naturally we've been able to attract businesses that are at the cusp or at the intersection of purpose and profit. It's just happened. I think what you put out into the universe comes back to you, and that those are the kind of businesses we've been able to attract. So for us at Connexus, it's less words and more deeds, and that's what Lead Her really represents. So thank you very much. We have gone past the 1 hour mark, and it's not felt that way. But as we wrap up today's Lead Her Roundtable, I really want to thank you, our amazing panelists, Aditi, Deepti, and Kavita, for sharing your incredible insights and experiences so authentically and with all heart and all experience. Thank you for sharing so candidly. When women entrepreneurs succeed, they create job opportunities, boost the economy, set an excellent example for future generations of women. Let's continue with our mission so that women can thrive in the business world and contribute to creating a fair and equal society and economy. And to our audience, you've been amazing. Thanks for all your contributions. Everything is so insightful. I think I will go back to all the comments and read everything one by one. And those are little posts by themselves. You should have been on the panel, honestly. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Lead Her Roundtable with insightful discussions on business, women leaders, and diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And watch out for our next Lead Her Roundtable on LinkedIn Live coming up on April 24th, same time. And the topic is women and visibility. So thank you for joining in. It's been amazing to be here today. Thank you, everyone.